All right, it's video time. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about something I've been kind of messing around with. Something I've been thinking about a lot is like, and I've even talked about it a little bit in like an earlier video about like my phone, where I was talking about how I don't like how like all of our devices these days are like designed to do everything. I very much so like appreciate single use devices, and so I've been kind of messing around with that. And like I said, I talked about that in an earlier video. I talked about how like I've been appreciating, say, just like a Switch, just like a single device. It just plays games. Um, I remember back when this first came out, like in 2017, I saw a lot of discussion about how people were like, oh, this thing can't use Netflix, whatever. Um, and even I remember like when I was getting one because I was like 11 back then. When my family was getting one, and my dad was like, "Are you sure you want this? It doesn't do streaming." And at the time, I was a little, I don't know, I was kind of bummed out. I wasn't totally because I like never really used those features on my Wii U anyway. I always used like, it's funny, my family used that PS3 back there. Yeah, they were like by the GameCube. Used that for like a lot of our streaming for a long time. But then eventually I swapped over to like using like a Roku box. Anyway, whatever. Regardless, and nowadays I use, you can't see it at all, but there's an Apple TV back there that I use. Anyway, tangent aside, but now the fact that it can't do Netflix or anything like that is like kind of one of my favorite things about it. Like, I appreciate the fact that it doesn't have like a web browser or whatever. And so in trying to like find that in other devices, like trying to find that like single use thing, and it's hard because like things are expensive, and so it's like you can't really like make that work if you use your technology for a lot of different things, like I kind of do. Um, but you can, I think, you can take steps to do that. And I think that's I'm not too deep into this now, but I used to be pretty big into like digital minimalism, and that was one of the principles of like, hey, just like use a device for like a single thing if possible. Um, and so for me, one of the first things I was like, okay, in trying to like decentralize my phone, I was like, what do I do for music? And so I've messed around with a few solutions. I don't have it here. It's like, no, maybe I do. I don't know where it is. I have no clue where I put it. Whatever. But I did try to use I like my 3DS, for example, as like a music player. It works all right. The music app for there's a few reasons it doesn't work great. The music app on there, the one that's like built in like 3DS sound. I actually really like it. It's got a very nice like Fruitiger Arrow aesthetic. It's very charming. There's a few things I'm not big on. So for example, like it doesn't show the album cover, um, which yeah, it's like not a big deal, but and then it doesn't load songs the quickest. Like there, like say for massive, I say massive for like larger albums, it takes a few seconds for it to load. So not an issue for everyone, but say I have like the Undertale soundtrack. I bought that on Steam a few months ago when it was on sale. So I bought that to have just all the MP3 files for, and it takes a solid like 5 to 10 seconds for it to load that soundtrack on 3DS. So it's not ideal. I did do a little digging, um, and I found this old iPod Shuffle. Um, like just sitting around. I had someone had given it to me just to play with a few years ago, um, and I spent some time this week, and I did get it working. The only issue is it's so old that like the battery is terrible, and I am not good enough at like this kind of thing. I like tech this small to replace the battery. I mean, you guys saw me want like do the 3DS. It was like if I can't do a 3DS, I can't do this. And I did. I thought about, oh, maybe just like turning this like my Apple Watch, whatever, into like a music player, because it's, I think, more a little easier to keep that for like minimal use cases. And it's not the worst idea. The only issue I came across, and this wouldn't be a bit an issue for, I would say, probably most people. Um, but number one, there's no like headphone jack or anything. Like not even like a USB-C port, which makes sense. Like it's not a big deal. In fact, I would say it's like pretty insignificant overall. But then also, the app support. If you use anything other than like Apple Music or maybe Spotify. I haven't even tried Spotify on there because I don't use Spotify, but I would assume Spotify has a decent app on there. But it might suck. I don't know. But stuff like YouTube Music, which I dabbled in for podcasts, or like just doesn't work great. And then like in Nintendo Music, just doesn't even have a watch app, and I do use that pretty frequently. So just not really doesn't really work for me for all of my music use cases. Um, so ultimately, this is really the only thing that works great. Um, and so in trying to figure out something, I did come up with like this sort of solution. So I have like these little like shortcuts on the bar here, that help me like divide out its functions. So right now we're on like the little gear icon. This is kind of like a catch-all for random like system functions as I view it. Stuff like a web browser, app store, files, passwords, like camera. Like these are all things that are just kind of like baked into the the digital experience. And I have like a folder here for like stuff that's specific to like the Apple Watch. And so that helps. So that works pretty all right. And then I have this, which is like the little phone. And so it's like just like communication. Because I do think like ultimately the main purpose of a phone should be to communicate. And so I have no problem keeping stuff like Discord on here, because I'm like that's the purpose of this thing. Um, and then I have the music one, and so it's got a few cool things. I just like it's got like podcasts. So whatever, it's cool. I like this. As you can see, I listen to a lot of like YouTuber podcasts, um, and also NPR. But like obviously I could watch these on YouTube, but I do like I really like the UI of this podcast app. But I do like that it is pretty cross platform because like I said, like I can use it on my watch if I want to. Which I can't do, say, with other podcast readers or like platforms, like YouTube Music. Because at first I was like, oh hey, I subscribe to a lot of these channels already, and they're still gonna put the stuff on everything. Like for example, Smosh Reads Reddit is still on one of the Smosh channels. There's no designated channel for that. Um, so I was like, oh, I can just use YouTube Music, and then it's like the same. Um, it's like I'm using the same account to watch the same thing or to listen to the same thing, just like a different app for it. Um, but the lack of a Apple Watch app made that not really great. Also, I don't like using a music app for podcasts. That's probably one of my favorite things about the like Apple like music slash podcast system is the fact that those are two apps. Um, so anyway, and then we got like it's just like it's a whole screen just made for that. I just got a text, whatever. I'll have to blur that out. Great. Let me turn this on Do Not Disturb. Um, anyway, whatever. So there's also got like Nintendo Music here, which I go back and forth between using like a lot. It just depends on what I'm in the mood for. But I do like it. I know it's somewhat controversial, but I do really like it. I like the UI. I think the UI is really nice. And I think it's cool to have like just I think it's nice to have a designated player for different kinds of music because like this, in my opinion, video game music does need something different than other music players. Like it needs to be a little more than just oh my gosh, stop texting. Oh my gosh. whatever. Um, you see, I don't want to. I can't go and do not disturb because if I do that, it'll ruin this whole thing because these are all like focus modes up there. See, and I keep notifications on because it's like, oh, whatever. Maybe that is what the one downside of this is. I still get text, whatever. Um, but yeah, I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, but what I was saying on this, where like with the music, it's like there's features of this player that I think are really nice. Like, oh, there's a sleep mode because, and they just added that. But like, oh look, there's sleep mode. I can't type, whatever. Um, which is useful because I do listen to this a decent bit before like going to bed. Like that's kind of one of like the routines. Is I throw it on the sleep playlist. As you can see, that's actually what I was last listening to on here. Um, but even things like, oh, you can like loop tracks because it's video game music and like that's supposed to be looped. So I do think this is a really nice way to listen to it. If anything, I just wish there would be other game publishers who will release their soundtracks through this. Um, we kind of got somewhat close because like they did the Tetris soundtracks for like the Game Boy and then like NES version, but those were technically developed by Nintendo, and they were technically those that music was made by Nintendo composers. It's just not something that they technically I think fully owned. Um, but whatever, I don't know. It's still cool. I like it. And I do like I like the weekly soundtrack releases. It's just I don't know a cool thing to look forward to. And then lastly, I got this whole. This doesn't update as quickly as I would hope. But there's this whole little like recently listening. But as you can see, that's not what I was listening to. But yeah, this is nice. I really like the UI here. I don't know, maybe it's because I've been using it for years on end. Um, but I think it's cool. I think it's actually a pretty good way to like sync up music you own because like I buy a lot of MP3s, but I just like sync them to iCloud, whatever, and then it's on a bunch of devices. So I think it's pretty cool. I know you know other streaming services have similar features, but I like it. I need to actually clean up my library because it gets a little. Sometimes I add stuff and then it just isn't. I don't know. Sometimes I want it to be a little quicker to find things I actually want to listen to. And it's like sometimes I end up putting stuff in here that I think I'll listen to more that I don't, and then it's just there's a bunch of clogged crap. But it's cool. And maybe at one point I could just show everything I got in here, but I won't. Um, but yeah, I thought it'd be cool to show off that kind of way I'm using it, and I've also been using like a pair of wired earbuds again, just because I don't know, I think it's a little nice to have something a little more. I don't know. It's like there's something about using like a corded device where I feel a lot more like present in it because I'm constantly reminded that I am listening to like I'm connected to a device. Like I have to pick this up and move. It's like the inconvenience almost makes it a better experience because I'm more aware of it. Like it's hard to like you know completely tune out all of the music and just let it be background noise when you have to pick this up if you want to like go to the bathroom. You have to take these out or whatever. So I kind of like that inconvenience, and that's probably something I could make a whole other video on. Um, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that sort of thing. Ideally, I would like to maybe at some point get like a cheap Android phone, and use that as a designated music player. That would probably work better for my use case, because then I could because these things, as much as I do like iPhones, they don't have like SD card readers or whatnot, or they don't have headphone jacks anymore, and so those things I think would be a little, I don't know, those are things I would want to have on a designated music player, and something like an iPod still wouldn't be able to be my like full-time music player simply because like I do stream a lot and I think streaming is still a pretty good thing. I don't think it should be the end all be all for listening to music, but I think it is a nice thing to have as an option. Because realistically I'm not going to buy everything I listen to. I won't listen to everything enough to warrant buying it. And so I think streaming is good, and like I said, Nintendo Music. um, whatnot. So yeah, um, I think I've seen like I'm pretty sure like the newer Sony Walkman like devices like those are I'm pretty sure Android based, and if they are, that'd be cool because then I feel like it's something that's relatively high quality, and it is a designated music player, but it still has like the benefits of a modern mobile operating system. Um, so I don't know. I might look into some of those, but then I don't really have the money for that right now. Um, but yeah. So that's kind of how I'm using this, um, and I think that's all I had to talk about. These get so long. I'm like, I was like, oh yeah, that'll be like 10 minutes tops, and here we are going on 16. Um, so yeah.